Welcome to the Vet SOS Veteran Educational Program Spotlight. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the Vet SOS Lifeline. Vet SOS is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and Parade Deck Community. And we are here, as always, with my co-host, Dr. Hira. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm going to try and play it cool, calm, and collected because we're talking to my alma mater today. So I'm really excited. Whoop, whoop, Springfield College. I got my mug and everything.
There we go. There we go. You didn't come all decked out in gear, huh?
I had to control myself this morning, I have to say.
All right. So today we're sitting down with Jacquelyn Wolf, Veteran Military Service Coordinator for Springfield College. She served 10 years in the Air Force Reserves, followed by 7 years of active duty in the Army. While using her GI Bill to pursue her education, she began working in her college's veteran office. It has now been 15 years of working in veteran education at several different institutions. Jacquelyn has an AA in liberal arts from Windward Community College, Hawaii, a bachelor's in anthropology from Hawaii Pacific University, and a master's of professional studies with concentration in higher education administration from the University of North Alabama. That's quite a variety of degrees there, Jackie. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's good to be here.
That's great. So let's start quickly with just your transition out of the military. How did that go?
When I got out, they weren't really talking about transitions very much. I got out in 2002, and it was a little unnerving. I had planned on staying in. I was going to re-enlist when September 11th happened, and I was married to another service member, and I had 4 kids. I was taking care of my mother, who was struggling with terminal cancer, and September 11th happened. And it was early on in my reenlistment window, and my family care plan wasn't going to work with everything that happened in September 11th. And it was a huge awakening for me and crushing, really, because I had planned on continuing my career in the Army. But I made the decision to get out because I was not able to do everything I was supposed to be doing for the Army, for my family. Everybody was just getting portions of me. And so I made the difficult decision to get out. And at that time, nobody was talking about transitions. So I was a respiratory therapist in the Army, and I just started looking where are there jobs for respiratory therapists. And I ended up moving to Pittsburgh with no family there, no support. There wasn't a large military community. It wasn't near a military base. And I started feeling very, very awkward and disconnected. It was a really difficult time. So I was there for about 1.5 years, went through an ugly divorce. Because once you get out of the military, all your focus on your family changes, everything changes. You start seeing things you never saw before. And it was an ugly divorce. And I made the decision to get as far away as possible. And I moved to Hawaii. I packed up the kids, packed up the truck, shipped it all to Hawaii. And that was a really good decision for me. Even though it was very expensive to live in Hawaii, there's a huge military community. I got involved with veterans there. Didn't even know there were people I knew working there. So when I started working in the hospitals in Hawaii, several of my old Army coworkers had gotten out, and they were working over in Hawaii as well. So I was reconnecting with people that I had known, and it was a much better situation, a lot more support. People understood me. They got the weird jokes. They didn't look at me like I was so strange. And it was much better.
I think you hit on something that, is always critical about the transition is, finding that community again. It can feel very isolating. That's why this podcast exists. We want to help reduce that isolation, let people know there's things and resources and people out there. So, you started your pathway as a student in Hawaii. How did you end up deciding you were going to work in higher ed?
Well, I didn't start off right away as a student. I had my GI Bill, but I also, since I had my training as a respiratory therapist from the Army, I actually had a really good paying job. There was good job security. There are plenty of jobs in respiratory therapy. My connections with our other Army respiratory therapists helped me find other jobs there. So that wasn't so much the problem. My son decided to enlist. He was part of the surge going in, and he wanted college. He was having trouble finding financing for college. And I told him, because of everything going on at the time, I told him, go Navy or go Air Force, stay away from the Army and the Marine Corps. He was very studious. He was a bookworm. He was very shy and quiet. He wasn't the boy that was playing the rough and tumble games and football and stuff. He was very sensitive, and he was kind of a caretaker in the family. I couldn't quite picture him in a combat role. And he wasn't that little boy that played those. My daughters, I could see doing that. My son, I could not see doing that. And so I told him, just go Air Force. I had been Air Force before, go Navy. And he went Army. And I was like, why did you choose Army? And he's like, well, that's what you did, Mom. So I'm going to go in the Army and I'm going to get my GI Bill. I was like, oh my gosh. And then what does he pick? He picks 13 Fox, which is forward support, which is out. It's a combat role. He's out with the infantry. He's, yeah. So he made it through, but he did 2 tours in Iraq. But I started thinking, my oldest immediately he went to combat. He finished his training and didn't even get leave when he graduated training. He went straight over. And that was really terrifying for me. And I'm thinking he could ultimately die trying to follow the example I set. And I haven't even used my GI Bill benefits. I mean, it's like, what kind of an example am I if, he's following my footsteps and I haven't even used this? So originally the plan, I was going to stay in respiratory therapy. I was just going to get an associate's degree. And since the associate's degree didn't really matter for my job, I was always interested in anthropology. So I was going to go in that direction. I was in Hawaii. There was a lot of Hawaiian studies classes that were really interesting and learn more about the local culture. And that's how I started my path. And I got so interested in what I was doing that I decided to continue to my bachelor's degree. And it started getting more difficult to juggle my hours at the hospital with my classes. And first I scaled back to part-time working at the hospital, and it was more and more difficult. And I started working, they had a sign on our veterans office that they were looking for work study students to help. And this was fall of 2009 when the post 9/11 had just kicked off. And the paperwork was crazy. There was so much coming in, and they were looking for students to help them manage all of that. And I was like, this could be good. I could work in between my classes. And that'll be good. So I started working in that office and learning, just passively learning. Nobody had time to teach me anything. You're just learning by the conversations in the room and the students coming in and all the confusion. Everybody was confused. The school workers were confused. The VA was confused. Nobody knew what was happening with it. So I started there, and I got so interested in what was happening that I decided to quit my job in healthcare and go to work for the school.
It's, I think that's the pathway that people don't always realize is, you can start and do something completely 180 to higher ed and still find a place within the higher ed setting to work and to study and to just be a part of it. So now that you're at Springfield College, How many military connected students do you have at the school right now?
Right now we have about 60.
Excellent.
But we're trying to grow that. We're trying to grow,
Yeah.
but we have about 60. We're just starting to roll out a better method of identifying the students when they come in. We weren't asking the questions when they did their application. And so we were finding them at different events when somebody would come forward and say, oh yeah, my parents served, or my spouse served, or I'm a veteran, but my benefits had run out. And I don't only want to take care of the students that have benefits. I want to take care of the entire veteran community.
Excellent. Nice. So what other things are you doing on campus to support the veteran population or the military connected population?
Well, we just moved and we've opened up a new veteran center. We had a really good one before. It was a little house. Here I came to see it. It was great. It was a beautiful little house, but it was on the edge of campus. And the veterans were complaining that it was too far. And it was. You could walk it if you didn't have any disabilities, but veterans, a lot of them have some disabilities. And it wasn't that convenient. It was about 15 minutes from the main part of campus down there. So if somebody wanted to stop in between classes, it wasn't that convenient if they only had a little bit of time. So the decision was made to close that space and open a new space in the campus union to make it more accessible to everybody. And so far, I feel like we're doing good. We're still trying to get moved in and get it all smoothed out. But I feel like we are getting a lot more visits there than we did at the house.
That's awesome. But these things keep going quick here.
I know. So, we're getting ready to wrap here. I'll add as a FC alum real quick, watching the transition from when I was there back in 2012 to what the college is doing now, there's a lot of growth. And I think that's one of the things to look for when you're out looking at schools is where is the growth and potential of some of these VRCs, see that effort that they're continually investing in our community. So, thank you, Jackie, for joining us today and sharing about Springfield College and the journey that our college is making to support the military community. On behalf of the Vet SOS family, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. You can find the Vet SOS podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and all social media. Make sure to subscribe and follow Vet SOS so you don't miss a thing. And please remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the Vet SOS Lifeline.